Welcome back to the Serpents and Doves podcast. Today we are talking about video games, Fortnite, and faithfulness. And we are excited to bring this conversation to you. I'm Josh Walnofer, joined by my co-host Frank Butler. Frank, how are we doing today?
Oh, we're doing fantastic. We're here to stir the pot, as we're good at.
Yes, and this is an important subject because it is actually crippling a whole generation of prospective men.
Particularly the men. That's the thing. The video game conversation, sure, there are women that play it as well, but it's particularly the men that seem to be affected by it.
So we believe that men were created to fight.
Amen.
We believe they were created to slay the dragon.
Amen.
And we were saying earlier that the problem today is what?
The problem today is that we want to create, what we've done, we've created these virtual dragons that we go and fight and we go and slay, but we don't risk anything in the process of doing it. We don't have to actually do anything as men in the process of doing it, but we get the fake satisfaction of succeeding and having accomplished our task.
So it's almost like bad theology has now transformed American culture into fake men.
It's exactly like when the men are sitting on the couch and they say, "We've won the game today." No, you ate Cheetos.
That's right.
They played a hard-fought game.
There you go. So what I was thinking was like Jesus calls us to take up the cross and follow him. And today's Christianity is sit on the pew and suck your church dry.
Absolutely.
I mean, get what you can get out of the movement. You know, there is no sacrifice. There is no, as Luther said, a Christianity or a religion that costs nothing is worth nothing.
Absolutely. There's no risk. There's no risk. There's just peace, comfort, and entertainment.
So we should probably start with the preface that we are not saying that video games by themselves are inherently evil. We believe that technology should be seized and used for the glory of God, and we don't mean by that cheesy Christian video games or Left Behind, Rapture computer games. That's not what we're saying.
Right. We're not saying go get a Bible Man version of Street Fighter.
That's right. Please don't. Please don't. But we are saying while these things are not inherently evil, the way they have dominated and controlled men's lives really has led men into sin.
Exactly. And the thing is, why are we talking about video games and not entertainment in general? Because video games, it seems, have had more popularity and had more of a grip on our culture than movies, comic books, action figures, TV shows, more than TV even at this point. Video games seem to have more of a grip. So that's why we're talking about particularly the issue of video games in the culture, because we're not talking about a dull blade here. We're talking about a sharp, great sword.
Yes, and as a pastor, I'd say it always concerns me when I see people that will spend $60 a pop for a video game and they're carrying around a paperback dollar dime store Bible, or somebody who will spend hours on end online playing video games and they can't pick up God's Word for 5 minutes and read. They can't spend 2 minutes in prayer. They can't be involved in any of the work of what God's doing in your particular church or around the nations. But they can commit thousands of hours to strangers playing something that doesn't even exist. That's called fantasy land.
You're being even more spiritual about it than I am. It concerns me the amount of young men I come in contact with that are proud of spending thousands of hours in a video game, but they can't look you in the eye when they have a conversation. They can't shake your hand with any kind of firmness. They can't talk to a girl. They're 30 years old and no prospects for a future woman that's interested in them because all they know how to do is shoot a fake gun on Fortnite.
You're absolutely right. This is an epidemic problem that we have in the American culture today.
Absolutely. And to be clear, like we said, we're not legalists saying that it is sinful to play video games. We're not saying that at all. If I had video games, I would beat my wife at Mario Kart every night for fun. We're not saying it's sinful. What we're saying is sinful is honestly the common and popular response to the video games.
Yes. Literally, to borrow from John Piper, wasting our lives away on something that bears no fruit. Now, one of the rising games today, which I've actually not played, so I'm always hesitant to talk about, but I think it's worth talking because of a Washington Post article you just read, is the game Fortnite. And I'd love for you to kind of give just a practical overview of what that article was saying.
So I don't actually know much about Fortnite either. A little background story to me real quick. I stopped playing video games, I can tell you, about 5 years and 3 weeks ago.
I know what happened then.
Exactly. The reason I can pinpoint that is because throughout high school, I had an addiction to video games. I played Xbox all night long for days on end, little to no sleep, only stopping to go to Waffle House and come back. About 2 weeks before I got married, I was packing up my stuff, cleaning out my room, getting ready to go into this new house with my new bride, and I looked at my Xbox and said, I don't need this anymore. I need to be a part of a family. I need to be a husband. I need to go on and do something better. So I pulled the Xbox up, I took it outside, and I threw it at the big green dumpster.
Amen. That's awesome.
And I haven't played video games since. So I don't know much about the game Fortnite itself. I know it's a shooter game. I know it's some kind of battle royal survival game.
I would say, even before you comment on it, I was just going to say, some of these young men that we know and care about that are seeking to get married, they want to find a spouse one day. They're spending all these hours on a game. And just imagine if you use that time instead to seek the will of God and to get out and to live life instead of hiding in a bedroom or in the living room or in the basement playing a video game. Imagine what you could do at the time, the money you could make, the work that could be done, what you could accomplish with your life.
Yeah, turn off the Xbox, learn how to look a girl in the eye, and ask her to the dance. I mean,
well, and if you're Baptist, not to the dance, but we'll just say out to Waffle House to make you happy.
Ask her out to Waffle House, take her out to dinner, do something besides that. So what the article, though, in the Washington Post talked about was the effects of video games on households, and what it was parents talking about this game Fortnite in particular is they feel like it's tearing apart their family. The children they're having behavioral issues. They're not doing what the parents ask them to do. They don't want to be a part of any kind of family interaction at all. When they're at the home, they're secluded into their room, not interacting with the mother and the father or any of the siblings at all. This is all they're doing. And what the author of the article started to talk about was the way that the video games begin to affect different parts of your brain. So the video game causes your brain to have the same sensories that it's supposed to have for the fight or flight mechanism, but your body's not actually responding to those mechanisms because you're not in a situation where you need to fight or flight, but yet that's what's being done in your brain. So it's changing the structure of your brain and therefore dulling some of those senses in a way that honestly it shouldn't be doing.
That is something we should all be paying attention to. I mean, these are not spiritual issues. This is just developmental issues. In fact, I can speak personally. I remember some years back when my son was getting into video games with all of his friends at school, I started to notice a difference in him. In particular, I was noticing him getting very angry and having outbursts and having a shortened temper and having a lot of aggression, especially right after he would come off playing a video game. It was almost like he needed time to detox before he could be his same old self. I was also noticing that he was struggling with looking at his parents in the eye. He was just short-tempered. And so we had moved the video games from, you can play video games from 30 minutes after you're done all your homework, to now you can only play on the weekends. And we really just determined for our family it was best to get rid of them altogether. So we actually removed the video game systems. And let me tell you, it was a true deliverance moment. It was a true freeing moment for our family because it freed up time. It freed up communication that we weren't having properly. I mean, those 30-minute game sessions actually became profitable times for our family together.
And you said that it was like a detox moment when he was done with it. It's because in the game, especially a game like Fortnite or what I used to play back in the day, a game like Halo or Call of Duty, especially any of these shooting games where you have other people coming at you trying to kill you, your mind begins to respond like you're in that battlefield. So what happens when your sister interrupts the game? All that energy, all that frustration, all that intensity that you have built up in you for this game is now being released everywhere else because it's not being disposed of the way that your body was made to do it.
Yeah, it was made to do it, taking out the trash, helping dad outside, playing soccer and shooting, playing basketball and slam dunking or hitting a grand slam in the baseball game, or outside learning a trade. I mean, there are so many things that God made us to do, and instead we're living in a virtual bubble.
That's something you're tapping into right there that I want to point out. Again, it's not that you can't play video games. It's that what are you missing when so much time is invested into this? You're missing out on certain qualities that, particularly, let's talk about men here, that are necessary for your masculinity to be developed into what God has intended it to be. Let me just say, if you can't change the oil in your... Okay, but you're a 5-star rank on Call of Duty, something has gone horribly wrong. If you can't shoot a gun, but you can play Fortnite for 6 or 7 hours a day, or that's actually light compared to what most kids are doing these days, but if you can do that, your time is not being used in the best way that it could be. You are not being productive to develop into the man that God has intended you to be.
I mean, this is really a spiritual thing, because really, we're giving way to the prince and the power of darkness. We're just letting our minds be wasted. Instead of loving God and loving others with our minds and our hands and our hearts, we're just giving them away to a system of non-existence, really. A system, this is outrageous. Now, I know some of our listeners are thinking, well, Frank, you're toxically masculine.
you just associated all these masculine traits with being spiritual.
Yeah, well, we hate to tell you this, but guess what? Before there was a modern technological boom, this is what people actually did every day. They worked with their hands. They were people that knew how to work so hard that they would, as we used to say, work like a Calvinist, so that they slept like a Calvinist, meaning they worked hard to glorify God during the day, and they slept good at night because they worked so hard during the day.
I said you should be able to change the oil in your vehicle. You should be able to fix basic things on a broken vehicle. How is that masculinity? Because God willing, you're going to have a wife one day, and her car is going to break. I've been married only 5 years. I promise you at some point the car is going to break.
It's going
more
down.
than one time. And your job as the man of the home is to try to help your wife deal with this problem. The problem is if you've spent the first 10 years of your life doing nothing but playing Fortnite, you have no idea how to deal with this situation.
Not just that, but let's be honest. You should know how to cook. You should know how to cut something up.
You should know how to kill something and cook it.
Yeah, killing it is even more exciting. There's no doubt. Farm to table, or in this case, woods to table. How about the fact that you should know how to paint a wall? You should know how to clean your room. You should know how to wash dishes. You should know how to do laundry. I mean, you should know to be a self-sustaining human being.
You should know how to defend yourself and to defend those you love around you.
Yes, I'm all for, hey, rather than spending hours playing Fortnite and your arms are weak, go to the gym. Go do karate. Go get a hobby and be involved in it. Give your all to it.
And what we've talked about so far is just what your body can do and what you're missing out with doing physically. What about what your mind can do? What about the reading and the studying and the learning that you can do? One of the most frightening things to me is when I'm talking with young men and they know all about what's going on in the video game world. But when I try to talk to them about anything to do philosophically, politically, or have a discussion about the nature of how we understand things at all, about epistemology, all these big terms that people consider to be crazy today, they have no idea how to interact with that. They have no idea what to say about that or how to think through that. But yet they know how to tell me how to change their guns on Fortnite.
That's right. I mean, if you want to use technology, use it for good. So it's like, hey, rather than that hour you spend playing video games every night, you could download an app and learn another language 5 minutes a day. You could download an app and learn how to play the piano. You could download an app and read a Kindle book every night. I mean, we're not saying no technology. We're saying use these things to grow your mind, to grow as a person, to change the world.
Something that I try to do, I'm a big fan of comedy sitcoms. Okay, it's not the same as video games. I actually think it's far more healthy than video games are. I'm a big fan of Frasier and shows like that. But one thing I do, though, when I watch these shows, I ask the question, what else could I be doing with my time to develop me as a person? What else can I be doing with my time to develop me as a person, to develop me to be a better man than I was yesterday? So what does that mean? That means picking up a book instead. That means I'll watch one episode of Frasier just to kind of relax for a second. Then I'll pick up a book, and I need to read about X, Y, or Z. I need to read The Critique of Pure Reason by Immanuel Kant. I need to deal with things that are heavier than Frasier. In the same way we should approach video games the same way. It's not wrong to play the game. However, ask yourself, what can you be developing in yourself instead of this useless skill? Because quite frankly, yes, you may learn certain skills from video games. You may learn how to have better problem solving skills.
No, you were right when you said useless. You were right.
From what we understand, there are skills that can be developed through doing video games, but they can be developed in other ways just as well and far better most of the time.
I don't know. I think all it does is mess up your serotonin and your dopamine levels.
And
That's
your
about
testosterone.
All yeah, it affects you in a lot of ways.
I mean, all right, let's just speak honestly. We got some guys walking around here that looks like they haven't left their mom's basement in 30, 40 days. They haven't brushed their teeth. They don't shower ever. Their skin hasn't seen the sun at all, so they look unhealthy. But dadgummit, let me tell you, they know about their games.
Yeah, now you say, well, what does this have to do with the Bible? Well, it has a lot. Paul the Apostle in 1 Corinthians 16 is calling out the Corinthian church. They're a typical church full of sinners, that it's messy, and Paul is giving a corrective letter, a letter that is loving. It's a loving rebuke. And he says in chapter 16, and beginning in verse 13, first off, be on the alert. You are totally not on the alert when you are wasting hours, volumes of hours, on video games. Be on the alert. Stand firm in the faith. Most of our men don't even know the faith. I mean, you were talking about reading Immanuel Kant. I just want you to read Paul. Like, I just want you to read James and read Peter and read Isaiah. Like, start there and then get to Kant. I'm all for Kant. I think we should be able to wrestle with him. But you don't even know the faith you profess to follow. So he says, be on the alert, stand firm in the faith, and here it is, act like men. He doesn't say act like women. All right, this is not toxic masculinity. He's saying be strong, be a leader, take dominion over the earth.
Amen.
And then he adds on it, be strong, act like men, be strong, and let everything you do be done in love. I would say it is unloving. If you're a husband and you're spending hours every night playing video games, let me just take that back. If you're every night playing video games, it's pretty unloving to your wife. It's pretty unloving to your children. Look, I mean, I'm a pastor. Yeah, I'm busy, but let me tell you, it would be unloving for me to do that. I need my kids. You get one shot to invest that time in them. And there's so many other things more valuable to do.
Amen. Amen. And the text says stand firm, act like men. What that translates in my mind, stand up straight.
Yes.
Look people in the eye. Be a man. Don't be a kid. Don't prolong your adolescence with this. Get out and do something. And you brought up a second ago if you're married and you're spending hours a night playing video games. Let me just say, if you are married to a woman and she is laying in bed and you're in the living room playing video games and you're not interested in changing that, something's gone horribly wrong.
Pin drop.
I'm just being honest here. Like, be fruitful and multiply. Turn on Fortnite.
Yes. Amen. No, this is absolutely true. So I know this might be a little tough for some of our listeners. But the reality is, what we're saying to you is what probably every pastor needs to be saying to you. We have an epidemic problem, and it is messing with kids developmentally. We are not helping people to use their minds and their hearts to change the world when we spend all of our time sitting in front of a television, a monitor, a TV screen, period.
So let me ask you then, Pastor, practically for just a second. I'm a guy that I've been playing video games for 7 to 10 hours a day, every day since I was 16 years old or younger. What's the first step? What do I do?
Well, if you've been playing games 7 to 10 hours a day, I'm really concerned. Because that's like you were literally up all night.
That's the norm now.
That's the norm. Wow. Okay. So I would say first off, like anything, you need to detox. Because you're addicted. If you have been playing that long, this is an addiction. All right. If you can stare at a TV that long, I'm really concerned about the fact that you might be having seizures one day soon. I mean, like this.
No telling how bad your eyes are.
This is bad. Yeah. But in all reality, I would say that you need to do exactly what Paul says. To be on the alert. To take a self-evaluation. And the practicality is what I would say is you need to get a timer out. And if you can't just throw the box out, which I would tell you to take the Xbox and just remove it out of your house, you need to probably quit cold turkey. If you can't stand firm like that, you need to pull a timer out. And after 30 minutes, it needs to shut off. I mean, you need to change your entire rhythm of life.
That's right.
You need to learn to start sleeping because you're probably not sleeping properly. And this is another whole epidemic health crisis in our nation. You need to have a change of your rhythm of life. So you need to begin to start to sleep properly. You need to go find a good job that you work hard.
Amen.
Again, we're not saying you can't play video games, but if you're going to play, that should be, a few minutes every couple nights maybe, just as a way of a quick mental release. This should not be what dominates your recreation or dominates your free time.
Amen. Several of the things you referenced there were about the physical nature of what you should do. So first step, turn it off. If you can, throw it away, as I did. Give it to somebody else if you can't throw it away yet. And for the time that you would be playing a video game, put on some shorts and go out on a jog, and then come back to your house. In fact, a good way to start, for every hour you want to play Fortnite, you need to run 7 or 8 miles.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm serious. Set a standard like that and stick yourself to it and have someone hold you accountable.
I don't want to kill them because I know how long 7 or 8 miles is. But like, if you want to do an hour of Fortnite, you better walk an hour. You better go run an hour.
Exactly. That's a good standard to start with. But you brought up all the physical aspects of this, though. We didn't even hardly touched on the physical effects this is having on people. I mentioned a second ago your eyesight. eye doctors will tell you across the board that you should only be looking at a screen for 20 to 30 minutes at a time.
Yes.
That's stretching it.
Yeah.
But yet we'll have kids sitting in front of a TV for 5 or 6 hours on end. No telling the damage it's doing to their eyes, and their doctors will tell them that when they go in to see them.
Well, even worse than your eyesight, I think, is your attention span.
That was my next one.
This is true with our phones as well, how they're changing our minds, that video games are made for the very purpose of you constantly transitioning and changing from one climactic scene to another, or else they can't keep you in the game.
It's called overstimulus.
It is overstimulating you. And so you're losing your cognitive ability to think deeply. You have, in fact, I would say if you're a huge video game player, you might have lost it. And many of these diagnoses that kids are getting for ADD, ADHD, while some of them are legitimate and people, yes, they have real legitimate problems, much of it could be self-fixed by turning the TV, the phone, the games off.
When you detox from things that are made to overstimulate your mind, when you detox from that, you will be amazed by what your mind can actually do. So I've noticed in my own life, when I have sinned against my God,
yes,
and I've gotten into binge watching a television show or something like that, my reading abilities they struggle. They're crippled from doing that. I'll have to read something 2 or 3 times, and I'll read it at a much slower pace than I usually would. While when I've detoxed from that, where I'm only watching one show a day for 30 minutes, which is what I usually do before bed as it is, I'm able to read things at a lot faster rate, retain more of it, and understand it far better.
Yeah, there's no doubt that these things are interconnected.
If you're, as far as the physical aspects of this, the obesity rate. If you're not doing anything physical and all you're doing is sucking down energy drinks, your body is not doing well. You're not made to function that way. God didn't create your body. You're being a poor steward of the body that God has given you.
Yeah, your body's the temple, and Paul says bodily exercise profits a little. He doesn't say it's everything. We're not saying that you should give all those 7 hours you were given to playing video games to just exercising, but everyone should be taking care of their body, and especially in a society like ours, which is not agrarian, which is not agricultural. Most of us aren't out in the field working all day. You need to have bodily exercise for your mind, even for your soul. Pop some headphones in, listen to some great music, listen to sermons, listen to books. I mean, gain knowledge, gain wisdom, grow in your walk with Christ. Sing the Psalms. I'm just saying. You can learn so many amazing things and take care of yourself.
Amen.
So with that, again, I urge you, brethren, be on the alert, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong, let all that you do be done in love.
We thank you for sticking with us on what would be possibly a very hard, tough episode to deal with of the Serpents and Doves podcast. We look forward to hearing your response to this. If you don't agree with what we've had to say today, shoot us a message on Facebook. Tell us in the comment box. Until next time, grace and peace. Thank you for listening today on the Serpents and Doves podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please hit like and share with your friends. We can also be found on iTunes, Google Play, and Podbean. If you like what you heard, give us a 5-star rating. If you did not, head over to the Facebook page and tell us why. Until next time, grace and peace.